What's up, guys? Out here in the shop again. Thought I'd do a little video of like a wrap up for the year, because that last video I posted is going to be the last track day of the year. I live in Michigan, so the racing season starts to end right around the end of October. At least at my local track it does, so that will be our last race of the year. But I wanted to make a video, give you guys a little update, what we plan to do at the over the winter for some upgrades, and just basically touch base with you guys, let you know where we're at and what kind of stuff we're going to be doing over the winter. I'll have videos on that, so we'll go ahead and get started into that. So basically what we plan on doing this winter for upgrades. I'm pretty much over the whole stick car, manual shift, stick shift deal. Really, the only reason we ever had a stick shift is because the car came with it. It came with a TR3650, which comes stock in these 01 to 04s, the GT46 cars. We used it because we had it, and we really didn't have the money to upgrade to a automatic. So we ran that, and if I wanted to put the time and the effort into it, I could probably get it working better. But our game plan all along was to go automatic, trans brake with a nice converter, and probably go to a radial tire. So that's what we're going to do over the winter time. So right now, what we have is, I showed in a couple videos back, I bought a TH400 core, tore it all down. Everything inside of it looked decent. The forward clutches were burned up in it, but everything else looked pretty good. So I got a rebuild kit for that with upgraded frictions. I bought a billet forward clutch hub for it. I bought a direct drum from a 4L80E. That comes with a 34 element sprag. The sprags are real common failures in the TH400. And stock they come with what the hell is it, a 17 element sprag. Anyways, whatever it is, it doesn't hold up very well. So the 4L80E, which is basically the same transmission but with overdrive. It was a later model, they put overdrive in it and called it the 4L80. The direct drum's the same basically, so you can so I picked up a direct drum out of 4L80. Came with a 34 element sprag. I bought a new sprag because it was a used drum. I bought a new sprag, so I installed that on there. What else did I get? I got a heavy duty low reverse band, a nice Borg Warner high friction one. Trying to think off the top of my head, basically all the stuff that you need to build a TH400 to hold, 800 to 1,000 horsepower. That's what I got. So I'll show you here in a minute everything I got. We've been getting a bunch of parts coming in as been able to afford to buy them. I still got a few things that I need to get, and they're mostly big stuff, the expensive stuff. I got a lot of the smaller, little miscellaneous parts that go inside the transmission, but I still need a trans brake valve body. And I'm likely going to get a hipster cast iron valve body with the trans brake built into it. They're deadly consistent. Hipster builds a real good trans brake valve body for the 400. So, and they're pretty expensive. They're about $400 you can get one, so they're not too bad. So we're going to plan on doing that. And then to adapt a TH400, which is a Chevy transmission, if you don't know, to a Ford mod motor, you got to get a bell housing to do that. So what we plan on doing is getting a JW Ultra Bell to go from the 400 to the Ford mod motor. And that same bell housing will work on any 4.6, 5.4, 5-gear Coyote, the 6.8 V10 if you wanted to. Any mod motor Ford, that bell housing will work. So that's pretty much future proof there, if I ever decide to step up to a 5.44 valve. But for now, we're staying with the 4.6 obviously, and we're gonna get a JW bell. Plan on getting a JW the wheel flex plate. You gotta get an adapter flex plate to go from the my motor to the TH400 converter. It takes a special flex plate. The transmission mount. I've heard of people modifying the factory one and making it work with the TH400, but I don't even have a factory automatic trans mount anyways, so I'm gonna spend a few dollars and get a Stifler's TH400 trans mount for the new Edge Mustang. Them aren't too bad. Them are about $1, I think $1.40 or something for the Stifler's one on their website. The bell housing's about $5. You can find it right around $5.15, $5.20 brand new. Currently, they're running a deal on Jegs where I can get it for about $499 shipped. That's with tax and everything. So that's that. The bell, or excuse me, the flex plate. You can get a cheaper PA Racing one. They're about $150 brand new for PA Racing, or the JW the wheel one. It's a little nicer flywheel or flex plate, a little heavier duty. Costs a little more money. They're like $230, $240 brand new. And then we also need a torque converter. Now, a torque converter is where you're going to spend a lot of your money if you plan on doing this swap. You know, a torque converter can make or break your combo. You know, if it's slipping 20 or 25%, you know, at the 1,000-foot mark or whatever, quarter-mile mark, you know, you're losing 20% of your power, you know, through the slip in the converter, and you're just, you know, you're killing your time and your ET, mile per hour, all that stuff. So, converter is super important. You can take a chance and buy a cheaper converter, and it may be fine, and it may be good enough, quote unquote. But if you're gonna spend the money to try to go fast, it's, you know, it's prudent to spend a little extra money on the converter. You know, the old saying, the budget on a build on a car like this, or any race car, or anything for that matter, the budget usually stops at the bell housing. You know, everything motor related, people are, you know, they don't bat an eye spending whatever they got to get the parts that they need to make their stuff run. So once it gets behind that, you know, suspension wise or rear differential, converter, transmission, all that shit, drive shaft, people want to go as cheap as they can, which I don't blame you. Well, not everybody has money to buy the best of the best. You know, we're just trying to have fun and go fast with what we can, so can't blame anybody there. But converter is one of them deals where you buy a cheap converter and you get a cheap core, you know, because all these converters are made from OEM converter cores, you know, whether they're from a Chevy, a Ford, an Opel 8-inch converter, you know, they're all made from a factory OEM core, most of them, unless you get a you know, a fucking billet bolt together converter, you know, it's CNC machined, that's different. But 90% of the converters that you're going to get that aren't bolt together deals are going to be come from a OEM converter core. You know, they'll have upgraded parts in them in that stuff to fit your needs, but the core itself will be an OEM converter core. So yeah, you know, like I said, people will buy $300-400. You know, the Jegs XHD converters are kind of popular for a cheap, inexpensive, decent converter that works okay for what it is and for the amount of money. But you know, a lot of times people will overpower them and they'll break a sprag in them. And when you break a sprag inside the converter, all that metal right through your transmission, and it just ruins your transmission. So you end up having to pull the transmission down, tear it all apart, rebuild it, clean it all out, and you know, and by the time, if you have a transmission filler, that's one thing. But by the time you buy this $300 or $400 converter, and say it's not a Jeg, say you get it from any place. You know, every place has cheap converters that you can get. You know, whether it's PTC, Hughes, fucking Cohen, you know, Pro Torque, Chance, you know, them guys, they may not have super cheap converters, but you buy a $400 or $500 converter, you get it, you put it in the car, you know, you get the labor putting in transmission in the car, you get it, you're all geeked up, ready to go, you take it out, on the track and the fucking thing blows right through the converter, or it's so fucking tight you can't get it up on the converter to build boost. So then you're like, well, fuck. So now you park the car, you pull the transmission back out of it, pull the converter out, send it back to wherever you got it from. Okay, you send it in. Some places, depending on the converter, they may or may not restall it for free. But if they do restall it for free, you're still going to pay shipping both ways, more than likely, with most companies. Okay, so you're buying an off-the-shelf converter, so they're not going to go way out of their way and do you free restalls and cover shipping both ways, because they're giving you an off-the-shelf converter that's cheap and inexpensive, so you got to expect that. So anyways, they restall it, they send it back to you, you put it back in the car, put the transmission all back in, and you got to understand that that's a lot of labor involved. You got to think about your time. If you're putting it in, if you're not putting it in, then you really gotta think about spending the money to get a good converter from a good company that will get close, if not perfect, the first time. Because if you gotta pay somebody to pull in and out each time, man, you could have bought two of the really good converters for the price of, the amount of money you're gonna have in pulling it in and out so many times. But if you're doing it yourself, you still gotta count your time, man, because your time's worth something, So if you gotta pull the thing out fucking 4 or 5 times and send it back and forth, paying shipping there and back, is that $400 converter really worth it? When you could have spent $1,000 the first time and got a good converter made for your combo. You give them all the specs on your car, they do their little calculation, they probably got some kind of software, I would assume, or they've seen enough of these combos, especially with like LS based and shit, they've seen 1,001 of them in fucking every car that you can imagine. But mod motors, they've seen plenty of mod motors too at like PTC. PTC does really good turbo converters, so that's where we're going to likely go. I'll talk about that in a minute. But, but if you have to send the fucking tank back in 2 or 3 times, is it really worth, the $600 or whatever, $700 that you save up front when you got to pull it out so many times and waste your time and pay shipping back and forth, and it may not still be perfect. They can get it as best they can with that particular cheap core, but in the end they might tell you, well, it's as tight or as loose as we can get this core. You're going to have to step up to the good converter anyway. So now you're fucking $1,000 out on the converter, the cheap converter, and you got to spend another $1,000 to get the damn good converter. So, like I said, it's one of the things where you just spend the money up front. Sorry, the damn thing cuts off after recording for so long. I gotta get a better HD card. So spend the money up front and get a good converter. Just save you headache in the long run, because if you buy a good converter, it's going to be a hell of a lot closer and specific for your combo. And if it is off and it does need to be restalled, they're going to do it for free. And a lot of times they'll pay for return shipping. You'll have to pay to ship it there, whatever it's going to be, $30, to ship it UPS ground or whatever. But they'll usually cover return shipping on the first one and do the work to restall it for free. Our game plan. Sorry, that rant's over. Our game plan. I put up a post on Facebook Marketplace, Turbo Bullet, the few mod motor classified places on Facebook, looking for TH400 swap parts, and I got a couple responses back that people had the bell housing that I need. A couple guys contacted me with that, but then a guy contacted me, said, hey man, I got everything that you asked for. I asked for the bell housing, a PTC turbo converter, the TH400 swap mounts, and the flex plate. And I think I may even had a fucking drive shaft I put in there just to see what people had. The guy contacted me, says, I have everything that you asked for except for the drive shaft. I'm like, alright. And I was like, well, what exactly do you have? And he was like, I got that JW bell, the exact one I'm looking for. He says, I have the wheel, the JW, the wheel conversion of flex plate, which is the good one, the more expensive one. He has a PTC turbo converter. We're still trying to figure out which one it is exactly. He's contacting PTC supposedly tomorrow, and I'm supposed to talk to him and figure out what stator and shit's in it and which one it is. If it's the PTC 10-inch turbo converter, it's about half the price of the 9.5-inch. PTC's go-to turbo converter is a 9.5-inch core. It's a Nissan core. It's a really durable, heavy-duty, holds up to a lot of abuse, and it's a lot more efficient. They can make it super loose at the line, you know, like where a mod motor would need, because a mod motor doesn't make a lot of torque and power sitting at the line. So when you're trying to build boost on a trans brake, you need it to be pretty loose to get up 4,200 RPM and get that boost going. And then it's loose enough at the line, but it's also efficient enough to couple at the top and give you, you know, 5 to 7, 8% slip at the quarter mile. And we're running super low gear ratio. This is a 327 rear gear in this thing, so you know it's gonna put a lot of load on that converter. So it more than likely would blow through a really cheap, you know, no-name converter. So so yeah, he's calling PTC, giving him the numbers off of it, because he had bought it secondhand from a guy to do this exact swap on his car. He ended up selling the car or whatever, he just had the shit left over. So we're going to find out which converter it is. If it's a 10-inch converter, I'll probably pass on the converter. If it is a 9.5-inch PTC, I'm going to soup it up. Because the guy for the bell housing, the good flex plate, a PTC turbo converter, and the Stifler's, he had a Stifler's trans mount, too, swap mount. He's only asking $1,000 for all of it. And you know, if it's the good 9.5-inch converter, I'm gonna jump on it. Even if it's not, I'll probably pass on the. If it's a 10-inch core, I'll pass on that and buy all the other shit, the bell housing, flex plate, and the trans mount, and not, you know, negotiate a better deal down from $1,000 because I'm not buying the converter. Either way, if it is a 9.5-inch PTC, it's gonna more than likely have to be sent in and restalled. The guy said it was built and was installed behind a 1,400 horsepower mod motor in a Mustang, a twin turbo mod motor, which obviously is more power than this thing's making. So it would have to be sent in and restalled. So I got to take into that account, you know, I'm going to have some money in the restall fee and the shipping each way. But $1,000 for all that shit, even if I have to send it out and restall it, if it is a 9.5-inch, is worth it. You know, that right there is, you know, $2,100, $2,200 retail price for brand new stuff. This is used stuff. You got to remember that. But you know, a bell housing, they don't wear out. They don't go bad. You know, they're either good or they're cracked and a pile of shit. You know, flex plate. You know, if it ain't cracked and the teeth on it aren't fucked up for the ring gear for the starter, you know, they don't go bad. The trans mount, same deal. You know, they don't go bad. So all that shit, you know, is fine. The converter, you know, that's a little iffy. You can look in there and look at see what the fluid's like and hope, excuse me guys, hope there's not a bunch of metal and shit in there. But like I said, either way, if I do buy it, it's going to get sent back. It's going to get cut open, cleaned, make sure there's no debris and shit in there. Because if you buy a used converter and it was on somebody's junk and they fucking blew the trans up in it, or the converter came apart or whatever, you know, and they sell it to you, now you fucking install it in your brand new transmission. It's fresh, fucking ready to go. You start it up and it pumps all that fucking metal throughout your whole transmission, and you know, you're back at square one. So either way, if I do end up buying that converter, it's going to go back to PTC for a restall and for just a checkup on it, make sure it's good to go. So yeah, he's going to let me know on the converter tomorrow, and then we'll make a decision on that. And if it is everything that he says it is, and all that good stuff. Oh, the biggest thing about it was the guy was fucking local. He's literally 20 minutes, 25 minutes from where I live. That's where this guy lives with all this shit, right? So I was expecting to have to pay shipping on all the shit and all that good stuff. But yeah, 20, 25 minutes away, it couldn't work out any better. So we're likely going to jump on that deal and get that bought up. We will still need a drive shaft. Oh, I also bought a yoke. Sorry guys, going back and forth. I bought a Strange 9-inch yoke for the 8.8. So they make a 9-inch yoke. You know, on the 8.8 Mustang rear ends, it's a companion flange setup on the drive shaft and on the pinion yoke on the 8.8 differential. We're getting rid of the companion flange setup and we're going to a 9-inch 1350 saddle type U-bolt, that type of deal, flange on there. I found that on Facebook Marketplace as well, used for like 65% off of what they go for retail, shipped. So I bought that up. That actually be here tomorrow. So that's the trans stuff. So the only other thing we'll have left is a drive shaft. We'll have to get one custom made. Once we get it installed in the car, we can measure it and get one made. We'll probably just get it made locally, likely 3 or 3.5 inch, probably chrome alloy, maybe aluminum. We'll see. But the only thing we'll need is a slip yoke that goes into trans, and then have the shaft made itself. And we'll have to get some 1350 U-joints, obviously, too. So. And then the last thing will be the shifter assembly. I'm still looking to figure it out. It's going to be a manual valve body, trans brake deal, a reverse manual more than likely. So we'll have to get a shifter set up for it. But other than that, yeah, the valve body. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's most of the major stuff. We'll have to get a trans cooler too and get that mounted up. But so that's that for the transmission stuff. We also are going to put in a set of nice heavy duty valve springs and retainers and locks in this to be able to safely crank up the boost 25-30 pounds, and to also be able to run the RPM that these little mod motors need. Where they really shine is up at the upper RPM level. So I got to set up pack springs for the intake and exhaust here already. I still got to get the retainers for all 32 valves. That's one other thing you guys got to realize. If you want to do a 4-valve motor, it's going to be expensive because you're buying twice as much of everything. Instead of buying one cam like an LS or 2 cams like a 4.6 2-valve or 5.4 2-valve, you're buying 4 cams. If you're buying bigger valves or valve springs, you're buying 32 valves or valve springs instead of 16 like the 2-valve shit. So you got to realize that when you're buying cam followers, 4.6 2-valve versus 4.6 4-valve, you got to buy twice as many cam followers. The lifters, same deal. You're buying twice as many. You're buying 32 instead of 24. So you got to realize that when you're going into it. And the force valve stuff is not as the stuff is readily available for it, but it's not nearly in the quantity that 2-valve shit is, because they made a ton more 2 valves than made 4 valves. You can find the 4-valve stuff, but it's going to be one more expensive than the equivalent 2-valve shit, and it's going to be a little harder to find, and people are going to want to charge you more money because of that. So you got to remember that. But other than that, all the other shit when you build the car is going to be pretty much the same. The fuel system, the turbo system is going to be pretty much the same. Obviously, the headers, the flanges on them will be a little different. But as far as motor-wise, the top end stuff is really, where you get bid on. Intakes and stuff could be expensive for them. People want $300, $400, $500 for Mach 1 upper and lower intakes or Cobra intakes. So they're buku dollars. And so anyways, we got springs here. The stock springs that we got in there now are from a 2004 Lincoln Aviator 4.6 4-valve. The SUV. They had likely 180 some thousand miles on them when the engine went to the junkyard, and I bought the heads off that engine. So there's no telling how many miles are on it, but I'm sure it's in the hundreds of thousands. So stock, they only got like 65 or 70 pounds of seat pressure on them, and I'm trying to cram in 25 or 30 pounds of boost on the back side of them valves, and then on the exhaust side, the back pressure gets to building, and it'll try to keep that valve hung open, and that's no good for making power. And if you hang them open far enough, you can make contact and end up hitting a valve on a piston. So we got good springs. My intakes will have roughly 130 pounds on the seat, and the exhaust ones will be, I think they're about 105, 110. So we'll be covered there. we'll be able to run this bitch out to you know 8 or 8,500 RPM if we want to. But so we're gonna do that this winter as well. So the transmission swap, the spring upgrade, and depending on funds, depending on where we're at, we want to get a set of custom cams made for it. That's expensive though. Custom cams for a 4-valve, you're looking at $1,300 just for the cams, you know. So you got to remember that too. But we're hoping to be able to swing that. So once we get the trans in there, get the motor, new springs and all that crap put in there, hopefully be able to get some cams at the same time. What's the other thing? We probably maybe going to be looking for new wastegates. I don't know about these damn China wastegates. They're cheap, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm getting boost creep, and I got two 38mm valves, which should be more than enough for this 4.6, you know, 281 cubic inch engine to be able to dump off enough pressure. But for whatever reason, whether it's in my tune or what, it's kind of creeping up higher than it should. You know, it'll ramp up, it'll peak at 18 or 19 just for a split second, and then it'll dive down back to, you know, 15-ish, around where it should be. So I don't know if they're just slow to react or if my lines are too long on the wastegates or what. But we'll figure that out once we get it put back together after the winter upgrades and we get to the track. We'll do some more fine tuning on that. Let's see here, guys. Oh, when we go to automatic, we will likely go to a radio, a 275 6015 Mickey Thompson radio, probably a pro bracket, more than likely. They seem to be working really well for guys. So right now we got a Mickey Thompson ET Street R bias ply slick on it now. It's a 26-inch. We went that route because they were cheaper. And so it was a stick car, you know. Radios don't work very good with stick cars. That's just a known fact. So we'll likely run the 26-inch slicks until they're worn out, and then when they are, we'll go ahead and get a set of Mickey Thompson radios to try out on it. I think I showed this in a previous video, but if not, here it is. This is the core case that we got, TH400. This is the parts that I took out of it. Like I said, everything looked good in it, besides the forward frictions were a little burned up. But I got a billet forward clutch hub, 4L80 direct drum. It's inside with a 34 element Borg Warner sprag, new clutches, seals, gaskets, lip seals, all that shit. I got a aluminum piston for the direct clutch. This came with a steel piston in it. Don't want it. So yeah, actually there's one of the clutches. You can kind of see it burn up a little bit. So all that crap's inside. Let me see if I can get a little better. This thing to focus. So yeah, so here's the car sitting in the garage. Let's see if I can back up and get you a shot here. But we cleaned it all up. It was a disaster from thrashing on this thing all summer long and shit. So we got it inside, got it covered up for now. And got quite a bit of room once we get stuff kind of pushed to the side. But bought a parts washer there to be able to wash some of the parts for the transmission and shit. So yeah, man, guys, that's where we're at with this. That's pretty much everything I wanted to tell you. So to wrap this up, transmission's going in, TH400, good converter, trans brake, putting springs and retainers in it, and hoping for some cams. Won't know for sure, but hopefully we'll be able to swing that this year. They'll be coming eventually either way, but hopefully this year we'll be able to do that this winter. So, alright guys, so that's where we're at. That's what we're planning on doing this winter for upgrades. And hopefully once we get everything in there, get the trans. The trans is going to be the biggest deal. That's going to make I think the biggest improvement If we would have had more time this year, had the car out a few more times, I'm sure we could have got it into the 10s, no problem, on the boost that it was at. Because mile an hour wise, oh yeah, I wanted to touch on this too. So we ended the season at a best of 11.7 or so at 130, almost 131 track speed in the quarter mile. And you know, with that trap speed, we should have no problems if we can get a good 60 foot. That was my main problem. A good 60 foot and a good front half. You know, we should have no problem running a deep 10 and into the 9s. We may have to add a little boost to get into the 9s, but we plan on running 25, 27 pounds. You know, up to 30 if we need to. But the trans brake T400 is going to make the biggest difference in this combo. You know, with a good converter that works really well, is going to make it work all together. So, like I said, that's the game plan. That's what we're going to do. If something changes, I'll be sure to let you guys know. But that's the plan, and hopefully that lead I got local with the guy with all the parts that we need. Hopefully that works out. I'll let you guys know. I'll shoot a video if I get that stuff showing you everything that I got and what I paid for it. And then we'll go from there, guys. So I'm going to be, as we build this T400 and do the swap and all the upgrades that we're going to do this year, I'm gonna make videos of that, and I will keep them updated and posted. There may be some time in between videos until we get all the parts assembled, but I'll try to keep you guys updated, and we'll for sure shoot a video when I'm doing the build on the T400, because we're going to build it ourselves. Never done it, not a trans guy, but I'm fairly mechanically inclined and can, get a manual and go through that step by step and build it. And that's what we plan on doing. So yeah, we'll get video of that and give you guys a little how-to walkthrough, and we'll build it together. So that's the that's the idea, guys. So stick around, man. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. I appreciate comments, good or bad. Doesn't faze me. I might bullshit back and forth with you if you do talk shit, and a shit talker down below, but it's all in fun. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We gotta try to keep these mod motor lives mattering. Mod motor lives matter, because you walk in the pit of our local track, or any track for that matter, and you fucking look around every which way. Fucking LS swapped everything. LSs are God's gift to Earth, and you ask anybody, and they'll tell you that shit. Well, us mod motor guys got to stick together and show them that these little mod motors can hold their own versus the LSs. There's not a bunch of them out there, but there's some full tilt ones, some serious combo mod motors out there making a lot of power, and they can hold their own for sure. You got to put some money into them, but they can hold their own. So we're going to make sure they don't forget about the old lowly mod motor 4-valve. So we'll keep chugging away at this, guys, and stay tuned until the next video.